All right, everybody. Welcome to the very first, hopefully annual Premium Programmatic Conference, or as we're affectionately calling it, PP360. On behalf of Media Math and Sonobi, thanks everyone for coming. So today we're going to talk about a lot of exciting things, and one of the things that normally isn't talked about when it comes to programmatic buying is the brand for all the quant people out there. And as you notice, we've got the Sonobi branded orange sports car out front, and we'll talk more about that later. We have our PP360 logo. We have a lot of good branding. Even the men's room, for those who have been in there, will notice the urinals are arranged in a 360-degree circle, adding new meaning to the concept of PP360. Thank you. Sorry about that. But. I've been in this business a really long time. I started as man was beginning to stand upright. That's about when I got into the business. It's the whole world has changed a lot. I mean, when I got, for 40 years, the ad industry didn't change from like 1960 to 2000. And it was kind of like, here's how you do it. And then all of a sudden, there's new ways to do it. And then it really accelerated. And it's accelerating faster and faster. And so that's one of the things we're going to talk about is adopting new things. And, if you look at just in the last 20 years, I can't actually read the copy here, but some of you can. How fast things have changed and all the new things that weren't around, it's pretty amazing. And I really liked it the old way. I liked all the really nice lunches, the algorithms we had back then, which is how many free media rep lunches do you need to compensate for a $12,000 entry-level media planner salary? Those were the algorithms we had. Who's more attractive, Condé Nast or Hearst? We had our math back then. As I say, I really don't like change. I hate change. I just hate being irrelevant even more. So really today is about being relevant, and that really the time has come for programmatic buying to take hold in a big way. In fact, you can say today is the beginning of Premium Programmatic. You can say you were here March 12th. Anyway, so we were talking about lunches, and I thought that was a good segue to talk about the lobster. Okay, and what we can learn from the lobster. I'm doing the light version of the deck. The other people will talk about all the intense, serious things. So I just thought of the lobster as an analogy. And, you might not know that the lobster was not always held in the same regard it is today. A lot of people don't know that, 100-something years ago. The marketing for the lobster, if there was a lobster association, wasn't very good. I don't know what agency did this, but the terms used to describe lobster: bottom feeder, cockroach of the sea. It was fed to prisoners. Servants had in their contracts, you can only give me lobster twice a week at most. All these different sort of things happened. So lobster was not very well thought of back then. Now, I would argue that we haven't always used the best terminology ourselves to market programmatic buying in our inventory, below the fold. Remnant, it's not the best word, but that's what we have now. Bots and unviewable, viewability and all that sort of thing. So we really are kind of thinking that analogy where, in a way, we're like lobster 150 years ago. This is a real interesting, quote, unfamiliar, vaguely disgusting, bottom-feeding ocean dweller that sort of resembles an insect. Okay, we're better than lobster a little bit right now, and we're going to get a lot better. So what happened? How did lobster get from there to where it is today? Michelle Obama. So every time I ask people this question, everyone goes, it's supply and demand. Supply and demand. But it's really not, because if you don't want something, the fact that there's less of it, big deal, right? That's really not the issue. It really isn't how lobster got to where it is today. So spam, right? I don't see spam around all that much. I don't see spam on the menu of per se, because it's in shorter supply. So, that isn't the right route. So really what we have to do is establish the value first of premium inventory before supply and demand starts to really take effect. So here's an interesting story, right? It's really a lot about context. And what happened was when the trains started to roll out across the country in the middle 1800s, the people in the middle of the country, more inland, they didn't even know what a lobster was. So what the enterprising people did, and a lot of them were even in the railroads and the dining cars, is they said, here's this thing, it's called a lobster. It's really good. And people liked it because they didn't know they weren't supposed to. And the context was completely different. So right now, if you look at inventory, digital inventory, there's a lot of it, and it's kind of in the commodity car, right? That's where it lives today. So how do we get it into the first class car? Just as lobster literally went from the commodity car, lobsters piled high, into the first class dining car. How do we do that? Okay, so the question I thought is, well, what is the first class dining car in media? What is that? What's the context? Where do we want to live? What's around us that makes this inventory, people see it for the value that it really has? And I thought, you know what? It's the branding car. That's the place, that is the top of the pyramid in the media world in terms of what to spend money on. And you know, even if not all premium programmatic inventory is used for branding, if you can live there, then you can live anywhere else. It's like if you're in the first class car, it's easy to get into the second class car and the third class car. It works, but doesn't work the other way around necessarily. So then I thought, well, what's the context of the first class, of the branding car, right? This is kind of where you have to live. And again, this is very qualitative as compared to the way programmatic is today, where it's completely quantitative. And you know, and qualitative can be good because it's emotional and some of it's not rational and not always based on kind of, you know, an algorithm and that sort of thing. So I think that's a way to think about it that's going to be an adjustment for the industry for a lot of people in this room. So then if you look at metrics, we all know the metrics in the current programmatic world, but in premium programmatic, you know, you have maybe some different kinds of metrics, right? The first look impression, right, might be something that's valued. Having the best inventory, the editorial adjacency, exclusivity, you know, the brand value, all of those sorts of things, which are kind of qualitative, though one idea is, you know, you could create an index and grade them, and that could be your sort of, you know, premium programmatic index and quantify it that way. But inherently, a lot of these are judgment calls and kind of like, does my brand really fit there? And even if you look at pricing, right? So the lobster went from about the price of beans, literally, it was about the same as a can of beans, to now, you know, if you look on the menu, it says market price because, hey, wait, you know, you better get this now because there might not be enough of it, and God knows what the price is going to be. And it made me think CPM, is there some other way of pricing this inventory that feels more like, you know, like something that's really valuable in short supply? And then, you know, another interesting thing is that I looked recently that the prices of lobsters have stayed pretty consistent, but there happens to be a glut, you know, a lot of lobsters around right now for some reason or another. And the reason is because it's a luxury brand. So once you establish that place in the first class car, then you have, you know, your price elasticity changes, and which is great for everybody's margins. So I think that's another thing to think about in terms of the benefit of doing this. And you know, near the end, I think we still will have an auction, but again, maybe it's a different kind of auction. You know, we're moving from that sort of auction to the Sotheby's auction with people with their paddle, because again, it's a valuable product and there is a limited amount of it, so you want to get it while you can, and there's a competition for who can get it at any price almost. And so, in summary, I think we want to be the 21st century, not the 19th century lobster in premium programmatic. Speaking of first class, you might have noticed the car outside. We are having a Twitter contest today. You tweet PP at PP360 NYC, and the winner will get either a day with that car or any of the cars at the Classic Car Club. And of course, if we beat Ellen DeGeneres and win the most tweeted ever, then you get to keep the car.